Welcome to the Power Book of Podcasts. Unlock your potential with powerful book summaries that inspire personal growth and broaden your understanding of the world. Each week, we explore life-changing ideas, from leadership to mindset strategies to keys for happiness and success. Learn actionable insights to apply in your daily life. Join our growing community of thinkers and seekers. Like, comment, and hit that subscribe button now. It's time to supercharge your mind with the Power Book of Podcasts.
Okay, so you've given me this big stack of readings about global trends and development. Some excerpts from Factfulness by Hans Rosling.
Yeah.
Clearly someone who wants to stay informed, right? Wants to get smart on this fast.
I could see that.
So hopefully you can help us sift through all this and make sense of it all, help us see what's really happening.
Hopefully I can help
at a global scale. So Factfulness makes this pretty interesting point, right?
Yeah.
It says the world is actually getting better in a lot of ways, but our instincts, our gut reactions make us think the opposite is true.
Yeah, and it's not just like regular everyday people. Rosling tested this on some really smart people, like highly educated people, even Nobel laureates, and they often got basic facts about the world wrong.
Yeah, it's like a hidden blind spot, even for the brightest minds. Makes you wonder why that is.
That was the question he was obsessed with.
Yeah.
And to get people's attention, he had a rather unusual method.
Okay.
He was a sword swallower.
Hold on, a sword swallower? I'm picturing like a carnival sideshow here.
Right.
Is this a metaphor, or did he actually?
Wait, he literally swallowed swords.
Wow.
It was his way of saying, hey,
Yeah.
if I'm willing to do this to make a point, maybe you should actually listen.
Okay, that gets your attention.
Right.
So what were some of the big things, some of the culprits that he found that trip up our understanding of data?
One of the first things he tackles in Factfulness is the gap instinct.
Okay.
Our tendency to divide the world into two camps.
Yeah.
Like develop and developing.
Right.
And I guess that is kind of a common way to think about it. Like, what's the problem with those categories?
Right. Yeah. What's wrong with that?
The problem is they're completely outdated.
Okay.
It took Rosling 17 years and 14 sword-swallowing lectures to convince the World Bank to stop using those terms.
17 years. Wow. So what did he say was a better way to look at it?
He advocates for thinking about 4 income levels, which is a much more realistic picture of where the majority of the world's population actually falls.
So ditching developed and developing, we got these 4 levels.
Yeah.
Okay. Paint me a picture. What does this look like?
So level 1, we're talking about extreme poverty.
Okay.
You know, less than $2 a day.
Right.
You know, walking miles for water, cooking over open fires, things most of us just can't imagine.
Okay, so level 1's like that extreme poverty we hear about. What's level 2?
Level 2, we see some improvement, you know, between $2 and $8 a day. Might have things like bicycles.
Okay.
Maybe some sporadic electricity.
Right.
Life is still really hard.
Yeah.
But there is a slight upward shift.
Taking a step up, but still facing a lot of hardships.
Yeah.
So what's level 3?
Level 3 is where things start to change.
Okay.
More noticeably. People live between $8 and $32 a day.
Okay.
You know, running water, refrigerator, even a motorcycle become possibilities.
Interesting. And then, of course, level 4 is where most of us in the West would fall.
Exactly. Earning more than 32 cents a day, you know, access to good education, you know, healthcare, a generally comfortable lifestyle.
Right.
But here's the thing. The vast majority of humanity, we're talking 75%, actually lives on levels 2 and 3.
Okay, so that's a huge chunk of the global population that are developed versus developing mindset that we talked about before.
Completely ignores.
Completely ignores.
Yeah.
It's like we're missing this huge middle ground because of that gap instinct.
Exactly.
So this isn't just about labels.
Right.
It's about having an accurate picture of where people actually are economically, which I imagine impacts, you know,
a lot of things.
Global markets, humanitarian aid, you know, all of these different things.
You hit the nail on the head. The gap instinct can lead to decisions that are really misguided.
Yeah.
And, you know, Rosling actually shared a very powerful story about a Tanzanian midwife.
Oh, let's hear it.
You know, these real world examples really bring it home.
Yeah.
So he was teaching a group of students, and this midwife proudly told them she had 2 surviving children.
Okay.
And at first, he's thinking, you know, like, what? But then it dawns on him.
Oh, she'd lost other children.
She had lost other children.
Yeah.
And on level 1, where child mortality is tragically high,
Right.
having 2 children survive into adulthood That is a huge accomplishment.
It is. It really does put things into perspective.
It does.
You know, thinking about, like, our own normal is shaped so much by where we fall on this,
on that spectrum.
Income level spectrum. I could already see how just understanding these levels is super.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Rosling constantly challenged people, put yourself in the shoes of someone on level 1, 2, or 3.
Right.
It's good exercise.
Okay, so we've talked about the gap instinct. What's another one of these misleading instincts that Rosling talks about?
The straight line instinct is a big one.
Oh.
Our tendency to assume trends are just going to keep moving in a straight line.
Like if the stock market's been doing well recently, you assume it's always going to go up.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Rosling did this fascinating experiment where he asked teachers to predict future population growth.
Yeah.
And they scored worse than chimpanzees.
What? Chimpanzees did better? You're kidding.
It's true.
Wow.
He presented them with a graph showing 3 lines representing population, over time.
Right.
And they had to pick which one was the UN's official population forecast.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them picked the straight line, but it was wrong.
So even people whose job it is to
understand this stuff,
to teach this stuff, they still fell for this trap.
Yeah, and the UN actually predicts that the world population is going to stabilize around 11 billion.
Okay, so why is that? What's pushing back against that straight line growth?
It's something he called the fill-up effect.
Okay.
It's basically the large population increase we see now is because people are living longer and they're having fewer children.
Not necessarily more births, but people are living longer.
Right.
And having their own families.
And that trend is only going to continue as countries climb the income level ladder.
Yeah.
They tend to have smaller families.
Okay.
It's just kind of a natural shift.
Right.
So what's the antidote to this straight line instinct?
Yeah. How do we stop extrapolating everything forward in a straight line?
Well, you got to remember that curves come in all shapes and sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Don't assume things will continue as they are.
Be more flexible.
Look at historical data.
Yeah.
Search for patterns and be open to the fact that things may suddenly change direction.
Yeah.
And Rosling experienced this firsthand when he was in Mozambique.
Oh, okay.
He was visiting a friend and they saw all these families, enjoying the beach.
Sounds nice. What's the problem?
Well, Rosling's initial reaction was actually negative. He thought, oh no, this beautiful beach is becoming overcrowded.
Yeah, okay.
But his friend, a local, gave him a different perspective.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What did he say?
He said, look, there's 80,000 people living in this city, and it's the weekend. Only 40 of them are here on the beach. That's 1 in 2,000.
That really changes how you see it.
It does. And that's the straight line instinct and the size instinct working together to distort our perception.
Oh, the size instinct, another one.
We tend to misjudge the importance of things based on how big they seem.
Right.
Or how much attention they get.
So if something is all over the news, we assume it must be a huge problem, even if it's actually statistically pretty rare.
Exactly. So Rosling has this great piece of advice. Never leave a number lonely. Always compare it to something else.
Okay, so don't just take that number on face value.
Right.
Always ask yourself, compared to what?
And the second tip is divide by the population to get those per capita figures.
Right. Just because a country has a lot of something doesn't mean it's a big problem per person.
Yeah. And he gives the example of child mortality.
Yeah.
He says the number of children dying today is horrific. Right. But if you compare it to historical data, it's actually at its lowest point ever.
Showing how those comparisons can reveal a trend that you might otherwise miss.
Yeah.
So we got the gap instinct, the straight line instinct, size instinct. What else?
Fear instinct.
Mm-hmm.
This one's about our tendency to overestimate the risk of things that scare us.
Okay.
Like being terrified of plane crashes when statistically they are incredibly rare.
Our brains are just wired to focus on threats. Makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint, back in the day.
Yeah, but it can really skew our perception of real danger. And he gives a powerful example from the Fukushima nuclear disaster.
Right, in Japan, yeah.
Over 1,600 people died in the aftermath of that disaster.
Yeah.
But not from radiation. They died from the stress of the evacuation.
Wow. So the fear itself ended up being more dangerous than the actual threat.
It can be.
That's so sad.
Yeah, this applies to so many things,
Yeah.
We might be scared of terrorism. But statistically, you're more likely to die in a car accident.
So we're captivated by these dramatic, scary events, but we're missing the less dramatic risks that are actually, statistically more likely.
Yeah, it's a common human trap.
Right. So how do we get a grip on this fear instinct? How do we make sure our fears are actually,
aligned with the real danger.
Proportional to the actual dangers.
The key is to actually calculate the risk. Don't just rely on your gut feeling.
Yeah.
What are the real statistics, What are the actual probabilities?
Okay, so we're building this mental toolkit now. We've got gap instinct, straight line instinct, size instinct, fear instinct.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm upgrading my mental software already.
Good.
So what's next on our list?
Next, we've got the generalization instinct. This is all about how our brains love categories.
We love putting things in those neat little boxes.
Yeah.
But I bet Rosling would say that's not always a good thing.
He has this funny story about having to explain to some African villagers that his friend, who loved eating insect larvae, was from a different tribe.
That's great.
Just to help them understand why this guy had such
an unusual taste. Yeah.
But it's such a good example of how we generalize.
Right, that we just make these sweeping generalizations.
And he talks about how he, based on data from Sweden, used to believe that babies should always sleep on their stomachs.
Okay.
But when he worked in Mozambique, he realized that wasn't true everywhere.
So his medical training was shaped by his background.
Yeah, it highlights the danger of generalizing from one group to another.
Yeah.
We need to be careful about applying those blanket statements.
Okay, so be aware of our biases and constantly ask ourselves, where do our beliefs really come from?
Yeah, ask yourself, is this belief based on solid evidence, or is it just a convenient generalization?
Okay, 5 instincts down. What's number 6?
Number 6 is the destiny instinct.
Okay.
It's the tendency to assume things will just stay the same.
Got it.
Especially when it comes to cultures and values.
Like those people will always be like that,
Right.
or that country will never change.
Yeah, it's
predetermined.
Like it's predetermined, and he argued that can be incredibly dangerous because societies and cultures are always
constantly changing,
evolving. And just think about
Yeah.
how drastically the world has changed in the last 50 years.
Right, let alone throughout all of history.
Right. And Rosling himself was constantly surprised by how rapidly things were shifting. For instance, he was shocked to learn that in some Islamic countries, women actually have fewer children than women in the West.
Oh, that challenges a lot.
Common stereotypes. Yeah, and it highlights how important it is to be open to new data.
Right.
To update our knowledge.
Instead of clinging to those outdated assumptions.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we combat that destiny instinct?
Yeah.
How do we not get trapped in that static view of the world?
Keep those historical trends in mind. Look how things have changed in the past and be open to the possibility that they can change again in the future.
Okay, don't assume anything is fixed.
Yeah.
Look for those patterns of change and keep an open mind.
Keep an open mind, yeah.
Okay, so we've covered 6.
We've covered 6.
What's next?
The single perspective instinct. This is the tendency to get fixated on one problem or solution, and we miss the bigger picture.
I think we're all guilty of that sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to get focused on one thing and forget to step back and see the whole situation.
And Rosling argued that it can actually lead us to make really ineffective decisions.
Okay, can you give me an example of how that plays out?
So he compares the healthcare systems in Cuba and the United States.
Okay.
Highlighting that both systems have strengths and weaknesses.
Right. We often hear about, the shortcomings of the healthcare system in Cuba.
Yeah.
What are some of the strengths?
So they actually have a very strong focus on preventative care.
Okay.
And they have a pretty high life expectancy for a country at their income level.
Right. Okay. So there's definitely something.
They're doing something wrong.
Something they're doing right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, the U.S. system? What are some of the weaknesses there?
So the U.S. system is incredibly expensive, inefficient. It doesn't always deliver the best outcomes for patients, but it has strengths, the access to cutting-edge treatments and technologies.
Right. So neither system is perfect. And if we get too fixated on, one side of the story. We miss those nuances.
Yeah.
Right.
Rosling used this analogy.
Okay.
If your only tool is a hammer, you'll treat every problem like a nail.
That's a great one. So how do we overcome this single perspective instinct?
Yeah.
How do we see that whole picture?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you need to actively seek out multiple perspectives.
Okay.
Talk to people who hold different viewpoints.
Right.
Read different sources of information.
Get out of our own little echo chambers.
Get out of your echo chamber and be willing to challenge your own assumptions.
I like that.
Yeah.
Get out there, expose ourselves to different ways of thinking.
Exactly.
Okay, 7 down.
7 down.
What's number 8?
Blame instinct. This one's about our tendency to look for someone or something to blame.
Right, yeah.
When things go wrong.
We're really good at that, aren't we?
We are.
Much easier to point the finger than to deal with the complex issues.
It's a natural reaction.
Yeah.
But he argues it can be extremely unproductive.
Yeah. What does he say about that?
Well, it keeps us from seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Keeps us from understanding what systemic factors might be contributing to the problem.
Right. So give me an example.
Yeah. So Rosling shares this really poignant story about a ferry accident in Mozambique.
Okay.
Initially, his reaction was to blame the mayor.
Yeah, of course, right?
Yeah. But as he started digging deeper, he realized, there's actually
more to
all these other things going on.
Right. So not as simple as just,
pinning it on the mayor.
There were issues with infrastructure, communication breakdowns, regulatory failures, a complex situation with multiple points of failure.
Highlighting that need to look at that whole system, not just the one person we want to blame.
Okay. He argues that instead of seeking out scapegoats, we need to ask, what are the underlying factors contributing to this problem?
Shifting from blame to understanding.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got one more instinct, right?
We've got one more, the urgency instinct.
Okay.
This is all about our tendency to overreact to immediate threats.
Got it. That fight or flight kicks in.
And make hasty decisions.
Yeah.
And, this can be helpful in certain situations, like if you see a tiger, run.
Yeah.
But it can lead to some really bad decisions, particularly when it comes to long-term planning.
So how does this play out in the context of, global trends? And Rosling was critical of how the media tends to focus on urgent news, earthquakes, terrorist attacks.
Right.
And it often neglects those less visible, persistent issues.
Yeah.
Like poverty, disease.
Right. Those less dramatic issues.
Yeah. And it can lead to us misallocating resources.
Yeah.
We end up focusing on the wrong problems.
So how do we control that? How do we not do those knee-jerk reactions?
Well, as with many of these instincts, take a step back, breathe.
Yeah.
Think long term. Ask, what are the most important problems that need to be solved? What are the best solutions, even if they take time?
Prioritizing effectively.
Yeah.
Not getting swept away by the hype of the moment, which is really hard, especially today with the information overload, 24-hour news cycle. It's tough.
But understanding these instincts that he identified, it's a good first step.
It is,
toward making better decisions.
He's given us this mental upgrade to see the world, navigate the world.
That's what Rosling was all about, empowering people with that fact-based worldview.
Okay, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
We really dug into these 9 instincts.
We did.
But I'm wondering, what are some practical ways we can apply this knowledge? How can we use this to make a difference in the world?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's what Rosling was passionate about. He believed that a fact-based worldview could lead to better decisions, smarter policies, and ultimately a better world.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Give me some examples of how this works in action.
Yeah. So for one, a fact-based worldview can help us truly understand global poverty.
Okay.
Not just the stereotypes or the images we see, but the underlying data and trends.
Right. If we don't even see the problem clearly, our solutions aren't going to be very good.
Exactly. And a fact-based approach can be hugely beneficial when it comes to tackling climate change.
Okay. Yeah, that's a huge issue that feels very urgent right now. How can this approach make a difference there?
Well, by understanding the data, we can see that progress is being made in areas like renewable energy, carbon emissions.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't about denying the problem. It's about being realistic about the challenges and the positive developments. And that can give us hope.
Yeah.
And show us that change is possible.
It's that balance, right? Hope without action is meaningless.
Right.
But action without hope is unsustainable.
Exactly. That's what that fact-based worldview enables. Seeing the world as it is, with its triumphs and its struggles. It gives us the tools to think about the future in a clear-eyed, informed way.
Clear-eyed and informed, that's what we need more of in the world. And I think it's something we can all cultivate with some effort.
It's about being curious, being skeptical, and also being willing to update our views when the data says we should.
It's about being a lifelong learner.
Exactly.
Yeah, never stop that process of questioning, exploring, and changing how we understand the world.
And that's something that Rosling, really exemplified in his life and work.
Yeah.
He never stopped learning, questioning, striving to understand the world in all of its complexity.
That's a great role model for all of us. So where do we go from here? What's the next step for our listener on this path towards greater factfulness?
Keep that learning going.
No!
Read Factfulness if you haven't.
Yeah.
Dive into the data on the Gapminder website. Seek out conversations with people who have different perspectives.
Get out of that echo chamber.
Get out of that echo chamber, yeah.
Okay, so those are some starting points.
Yeah.
But what about taking action, right?
Yeah.
How can we actually translate this knowledge into real-world impact?
You can support organizations addressing global poverty,
Yeah.
climate change, whatever resonates with you. Volunteer your time, donate money, spread awareness.
Yeah.
All of those things can make a difference.
Even small acts
Even small acts
can contribute to a bigger
movement.
for positive change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about in our own daily lives?
Yeah.
How can we be more factful in those everyday interactions?
I think a good place to start is be mindful of your own biases. Pay attention to how you're thinking about the world.
Yeah.
Are you relying on assumptions?
Right.
Are you making generalizations?
Yeah.
Are you letting the fear instinct take over?
So cultivating that awareness of our thought processes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also be respectful of other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
Even when you disagree with someone, try to understand where they're coming from. That's harder than it sounds.
It is.
But I think in this world,
It is,
it often
yeah.
feels so polarized.
Yeah.
It's essential.
I think if we can all commit to being a little more factful,
Yeah.
a little more open-minded, I think that goes a long way.
It does. I think Rosling would be thrilled to see that happening. To see people coming together, not based on ideology or dogma,
Right.
but based on that shared commitment to facts and understanding.
I think he would be too. So let's go out there.
Let's go out there.
Be factful.
Be factful. Be open-minded.
Be open-minded.
And help create that better world.
Yeah.
One fact at a time.
I love it.
Okay, we've talked about the importance of, a fact-based worldview.
Yeah.
And the danger of those misleading instincts.
Right.
But I'm curious, what are some of the biggest challenges we face when we're actually trying to be more factful?
That's a great question. And I think that's something Rosling struggled with, throughout his work. And I think one of the biggest hurdles is that our brains are wired for survival, not accuracy.
Yeah.
Back when we were living in caves, we didn't need to know. The child mortality rate in sub-Saharan Africa.
We just needed to know how to not get eaten by a lion.
We needed to know how to avoid getting eaten by a lion. Our brains evolved to zero in on immediate threats.
Yeah.
Make quick judgments and,
Right.
draw conclusions from limited experiences. Those were essential for survival back then. But yeah.
In today's world, they can lead us astray.
So it's like our brains are working against us.
In a way, yeah.
When it comes to seeing the world clearly.
Because those instincts are so deeply ingrained, it takes a conscious effort to
override them.
override them. And that can be really challenging.
It's so much easier to just go with your gut.
It is.
Cling to those comfortable assumptions.
Yeah.
Than to deal with the complexity
Yeah, it's messy out there.
of the world.
Yeah.
So what are the benefits then? Why should we even bother doing all this work?
Yeah. Well, there are tons of benefits, both on a personal level
Yeah.
and on a global level.
Okay, let's start personal.
Yeah. Personal level, it can help us make better decisions
Okay.
in all areas of life.
Right, because if we're basing our decisions on
Yeah.
accurate information
Right.
and not fear or bias,
We're going to be better off in the long run.
we're going to make better choices.
Yeah. It can also help us to be more effective in our work, our relationships, in our community involvement.
So becoming more successful, more fulfilled,
Yeah.
more connected, what about those global benefits?
Yeah. Globally, it can lead to smarter, more effective policies.
Right, because if our leaders, policymakers, are making decisions based on data and evidence, not on ideology or whatever,
Right.
we're more likely to see progress on these
On those crucial issues.
issues like poverty, climate change,
Yeah.
all these things.
And I think it can play a crucial role in promoting peace
Right.
and understanding between different cultures and nations.
Yeah, I mean, so much conflict comes from misinformation and stereotypes and just
Fear of the unknown.
fear of the unknown.
And if we can all strive to see the world more accurately,
Yeah.
if we can recognize our shared humanity despite our differences,
Yeah.
I think it becomes possible to build bridges across those divides. It's a beautiful vision, a more just, equitable, peaceful world, grounded in a shared understanding.
Yeah, and speaking of rewards, what are some of the upsides
Yeah.
of cultivating this, fact-based worldview, why should our listener put in all this effort?
It's a good question. Well, there are numerous benefits, both on a personal level and on a global level.
So let's start with personal. What are the ways it can improve our lives as individuals?
It can help us make better decisions in all areas of life.
Right, because if we're basing those decisions on accurate information, not fear or bias.
Not on wishful thinking. You're more likely to make choices that actually benefit you.
That serve us well.
A fact-based worldview can help us be more effective in our work, our relationships, our community involvement.
So we're more successful, more fulfilled, more connected. What about global? How can this help us create a better world?
For everyone.
For everyone.
It can lead to smarter, more effective policies.
Because if our leaders and policymakers are making decisions based on data and evidence.
And long-term thinking.
Not,
Not ideology, not political maneuvering.
Then we're more likely to see progress on poverty.
On the issues that matter.
Climate change, global health, all these things.
And it can play a really important role in promoting peace. And understanding between different
cultures and nations.
I
mean, so much conflict stems from just misinformation and
stereotypes.
Fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown. If we can strive to see the world more accurately, recognize that shared humanity despite our differences, I think it is possible to build bridges.
Across those divides.
That's
powerful. So we've talked about those internal challenges. Starting with ourselves. But how do we encourage others to adopt this? How do we spread this message of critical thinking?
Of being more factful.
Evidence-based reasoning. Seeing the world.
That's a fantastic question. And it's something that Rosling dedicated, his life to. He spent his career trying to educate people about the world. Dispel those myths, misconceptions, and promote that more fact-based worldview.
And he was so good at doing it in this, engaging
way.
He was a great storyteller.
He was.
He used humor, visuals to make it really come alive.
Right. And I think there's a lesson there for all of us, right?
There is.
If we want to persuade people to be more factful, we have to make it interesting and relevant.
To their lives.
We can't be preachy or condescending.
No one likes to be lectured to. We got to meet people where they are.
Exactly.
Right. And present information in a way that's accessible.
That connects
and engaging.
And one of the most effective ways to do that, I think, is storytelling.
Stories are powerful.
The stories are powerful. They connect with us on an emotional level. They help us remember things more easily.
Rosling is so brilliant at that.
He was.
At using stories. To illustrate, all these different points.
He told stories about his own experiences, about the people he met, about the data. And those stories made the data come alive. Made it relatable, made it memorable.
And they helped to open people's minds to new ways of seeing the world. So storytelling is important. What else?
I think another strategy is to ask questions.
Right, because people are more likely to engage if they feel like they're a part of that discovery process, not just being told.
Not being lectured to. If we can ask questions that spark that genuine curiosity, that make people want to learn more, then I think we're much more likely to plant the seeds for real change.
Okay, and what kind of questions are most effective?
I think it's really important to ask open-ended questions.
Okay.
Questions that don't have a right or wrong answer.
You're not trying to test them.
You're not testing.
You're inviting them into a dialogue.
You're inviting them into a dialogue. You want them to
think critically.
And I think that's a crucial part of promoting factfulness.
It's not about lecturing. It's about creating a safe space for that conversation, right? Even when you disagree.
Absolutely.
So we got storytelling, asking those thoughtful questions. What else? What's another ingredient?
Patience.
Patience. That's a big one.
It's huge.
Changing hearts and minds.
Doesn't happen overnight.
And
we need to respect where people are in their own journey. Some folks are more receptive to new information than others, and that's okay. We just keep planting those seeds, keep sharing that message of factfulness, and trust that over time, it'll take root.
Planting those seeds of understanding and trusting that process.
I
love that. What are some of the biggest obstacles that stand in the way of being factful? Why is it so hard to get people to just
Yeah.
Embrace facts. Think critically.
It's a good question. I think one of the most formidable obstacles is that we live in a world that's increasingly dominated by misinformation and disinformation.
It's true. I mean, everywhere you look, it's fake news, it's conspiracy theories.
Biased reporting,
It's hard to know.
It's hard to sift through and know what to trust.
What to trust, right.
And the rise of social media has only amplified that problem.
I mean, how so?
Well, those social media algorithms,
Right.
they're designed to show us content that aligns with our existing beliefs. So it creates these echo chambers where people are just constantly
being reinforced?
Being reinforced in their biases.
Making it harder to even engage with differing views.
It's a self-perpetuating cycle that makes it really hard to have
constructive dialogue.
Yeah, constructive dialogue.
I think another big hurdle is that people are often afraid of being wrong.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Yeah, why is that?
I think it's partly because our culture places so much emphasis on being right.
Right.
You know, from a young age, we're taught that being wrong is a sign of weakness, even stupidity.
So we internalize that fear.
Of making mistakes, we're resistant.
Been wrong.
Yeah, of admitting we're wrong.
Yeah.
And that makes it really hard.
Yeah.
To be open to new information, to challenge our own assumptions.
To course correct when we need to.
To course correct, yeah. It's just...
We're afraid of looking bad.
It is. It's that fear of losing face. And it's so counterproductive because if we're not willing to be wrong sometimes, then we're not really open to learning and growth.
Right. It's like we're hindering our own, development by clinging to this illusion.
To this illusion.
Of being right.
Of being right all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got the misinformation problem, this deep-seated fear of being wrong.
Yeah.
What other obstacles?
What other things are standing in the way?
Standing in the way, yeah.
I think another big hurdle is that people are often overwhelmed by the complexity of the world.
Right. I mean, it's a lot. The world is full of these complex problems.
These interconnected issues.
Yeah.
Different perspectives.
Information overload.
It's information overload.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And so people often retreat into that simplification, into black and white thinking, into those easy answers.
Well, it feels safer.
That might offer comfort, but don't really reflect.
The nuances of reality.
We just gravitate towards what feels more manageable.
Yeah, what feels manageable.
Even if it's not true.
Yeah. And the truth is, the world is messy.
Yeah.
And complex.
And there aren't.
And there are rarely
simple solutions.
So we need to learn to embrace that complexity.
We do.
Right? Even when it feels
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe one of the most exciting...
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the most exciting
challenges we face.
As human beings.
Right. It's finding those ways to hold that complexity, to see those nuances, and to recognize that interconnectedness of it all.
It's a tall order.
It is.
But I think it's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
So we've identified those obstacles,
Yeah.
The misinformation.
Fear
of being wrong.
The fear of being wrong.
Desire to oversimplify.
And the desire to oversimplify.
So what can we do to overcome these?
Right.
How do we cultivate this more?
Yeah, how do we create a more factful world?
Informed, compassionate world. It all starts with ourselves.
Yeah.
We can't change the world if we're not willing to look inward.
Our own work, to look inward.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to challenge our own assumptions.
To be open.
Be open to new information, to admit when we're wrong.
Yeah.
To keep learning throughout our lives.
Be humble, curious.
Be humble, be curious,
And committed to that constant growth.
Yeah, and be compassionate.
Yeah.
With ourselves and others. We're all on this journey together.
We are.
We're all going to make mistakes.
We're all going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
So be kind to ourselves, be kind to each other.
Yeah.
And keep working towards that more. Just equitable, fact-based world.
I love it.
Okay, so we've talked about the internal work, starting with ourselves.
Yeah.
What
about encouraging others?
How do we encourage others? Yeah.
Right.
To embrace factfulness.
I think one of the most powerful things we can do is to be role models.
Right. Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
People are going to be more likely to listen to us if they see that we're actually
walking the talk.
Walking the talk, yeah.
So we need to be willing to admit when we're wrong, change our minds when presented with new evidence, approach conversations with humility and respect, even when we disagree.
Yeah.
And I think just as important as modeling those behaviors is patience.
Patience, right.
Yeah. It takes time.
changing people's minds isn't like flipping a switch.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah.
And we need to meet people where they are in their own journey. You know, some might be more open to new information than others, and that's okay.
That's okay.
You know, we just got to keep being consistent, keep planting those seeds of understanding, and trust over time that they'll bear fruit.
I love that. Planting seeds.
Yeah.
Nurturing that understanding.
Nurturing that understanding, yeah.
And trusting the process.
And trusting the process.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So for all those listeners out there who are feeling inspired, you know, to spread this message of factfulness.
Remember to be patient, persistent, and creative. You know, find ways to make the data interesting, find ways to connect with people on a heart level and just spark that genuine
curiosity.
Yeah.
And remember, even those small actions can create a ripple effect.
Every time you challenge a stereotype, you correct a misconception.
Yeah.
You share a fact. You spark someone's curiosity.
You're contributing.
Yeah, you're contributing
to that more factful, informed,
compassionate
world.
Compassionate world.
Compassionate world.
They add up, right?
They add up, yeah. It's like throwing a pebble into a pond and watching those ripples spread outward.
And that gives me so much hope, you know?
It does, yeah.
Knowing that all these people all around the world are doing this work, are planting those seeds, are making a difference.
They are.
One fact, one conversation, one act of kindness at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful vision, and I'm curious, for those people who, you know, want to contribute.
Yeah.
What are some of those tools?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Some of those resources.
To help them on this journey towards greater factfulness.
There are so many amazing resources available both online and offline.
So let's start with online. What are some of your go-to websites or apps?
One of my absolute favorites is Gapminder.
Yeah, Gapminder. I mean, it's just this treasure trove
It is.
of data and visualizations
It is.
to help us see the world more clearly.
Yeah.
Right? And those incredible bubble charts.
Those bubble charts.
I mean, they're so captivating to watch.
Yeah, they really help you.
And they really help you grasp those global trends.
They do.
What else? What are some other?
Another great resource is Our World in Data.
Our World in Data, yeah.
They've got so many great
articles, data visualizations.
Data visualizations.
Yeah, huge range of global issues.
Huge range of issues.
Yeah.
And they present it in a way that's really easy to understand.
Accessible,
clear.
Yeah, Our World in Data.
Yeah, so if you're feeling overwhelmed by the data out there,
What's a good place to start?
That's a good place to start. I would also say that the website for the World Bank is another really good resource.
I'm familiar with that one. I mean, they have a ton of data on global development.
They do.
It can be a little overwhelming.
It can be.
You can navigate them.
It can be, yeah. But they do offer some excellent reports and summaries that can give a really good overview of those key trends. Now, if you're looking for something a bit more digestible, you know, in terms of just like reading.
Yeah, a little more user-friendly.
A little more user-friendly.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about Factfulness.
Yeah, Factfulness by Rosling.
That's a great starting point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a foundational book for understanding.
It is.
All these things.
It's a must read.
Yeah.
For anyone who wants to be more informed.
Informed and engaged.
Yeah. And there's also, it's an online game, but Dollar Street?
Dollar Street. Oh, yeah. I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's an innovative and engaging way to learn about global poverty and inequality.
Okay.
So it's a virtual tour.
Oh, cool.
Of homes around the world, from the poorest to the wealthiest.
Love that idea.
Showing you how people actually live at those different income levels.
And that really puts a face.
It does. It really puts a human face.
On the data,
On the data,
And allows us to kind of...
And it's great for breaking down stereotypes.
You see through other people's eyes?
Yeah, and challenging your assumptions about what poverty really looks like.
So Dollar Street is a fun and informative way to engage with that global inequality.
Yeah, and if you're interested in a more data-driven approach, I would recommend the website Data Wrapper.
Data Wrapper, I'm not familiar. What is that?
It's a free online tool that allows you to create your own charts and maps.
Wow.
And it's super user-friendly. It has a lot of...
Really? So even if we're not like data scientists, we can...
You can use it.
Create our own...
Visualizations.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great way to explore data, communicate information effectively, and even to...
Tell stories.
Tell stories with numbers.
Empowering everyone to be more...
Data literate.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really valuable skill in today's world.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about some great online resources.
Yeah.
What about offline?
Offline resources.
What can we do?
Well, I think one of the most powerful offline resources is just talking to people.
Right. I mean, we can learn so much from each other.
Yeah, make an effort to, connect with people who have different backgrounds than you.
Right.
Who've had different life experiences, different viewpoints.
Yeah. Get out of that echo chamber again. I'm sensing a theme.
Get out of the echo chamber, yeah.
Okay. What are some other great
offline resources? Well, I have to mention books, of course.
I knew you were going to say that.
I love a good book.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, a book really lets you take your time with it,
Yeah.
Reflect, think critically.
It does.
And really deepen our empathy for others.
Books can be portals to entire worlds.
Yeah, and they can help us to see the world through the eyes of others, connect with different cultures, really grasp that
absolutely
shared humanity.
Shared humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of connecting with different cultures, travel is another incredibly valuable offline resource.
It's so powerful, to experience the world.
To experience it firsthand.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be some elaborate trip.
Right.
Even just a short visit to a nearby town.
Yeah.
Can expose you to new cultures, new ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the key is to approach those things with
mind.
An open mind, be curious, ask questions.
Yeah.
Really listen to the people we meet along the way.
I think that's a big part of what it means to be factful, right? It's about stepping outside of our comfort zone, expanding our horizons, and recognizing that beautiful diversity of human experience.
So for our listeners out there, if you're feeling inspired to be more factful, to see the world,
to make a positive impact
more clearly, to make a positive impact,
there are resources to support you on this journey.
There are. Explore the data.
Explore the data.
Dive into those books.
Dive into books.
Have those conversations.
Have those meaningful conversations. Travel if you can.
If you can, yes.
And most importantly, keep that spark of curiosity alive.
Keep that spark alive.
Yeah, it's the fuel for real learning and growth.
It is. It's such a simple but powerful reminder.
It is. It is.
Okay, so as we wrap up our exploration of factfulness and global trends, I want to ask, what's one piece of advice that you would offer our listener?
Oh, that's a great question.
Who's just starting out, on this path of becoming more factful? What would it be?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is to remember this is a journey, not a destination.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, we're never going to be perfectly factful,
right?
Immune to bias and misinformation.
Right.
We're all human.
We're all human. Yeah, it's about
progress.
Progress.
Not perfection. It's about continually striving to improve our understanding of the world, even if we make mistakes along the way.
And to be compassionate.
Yes, compassionate with yourself and with others.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to mess up. We're all going
to
fall prey to those instincts. We're all going to get things wrong.
We're going to get things wrong, but we're not going to let those mistakes define us.
Exactly. And, we'll acknowledge them. We'll learn from them.
Yeah.
We'll keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward. And I think it's important to celebrate those moments.
Oh, absolutely.
When we get it right.
Celebrate those wins.
Yeah.
No matter how small they might seem.
They matter.
They matter. Every step in the right direction is a victory worth celebrating.
All right. So if you're feeling a little daunted by this whole idea of becoming more factful, remember, be kind to yourself.
Yeah, be kind to yourself.
Take it one step at a time.
One step at a time.
Celebrate everything.
You celebrate those wins.
One soul along the way.
Yeah, I love that. One step at a time.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
In this deep dive. We explored those 9
misleading instincts.
Fascinating.
Fascinating, yeah.
Yet misleading instincts.
That Rosling identified.
We talked about.
Practical strategies.
Practical strategies, for recognizing.
Recognizing and managing them.
For managing them. And we talked about the importance.
Of interconnectedness,
How our actions and choices really impact.
The wider world.
Yeah.
And we talked about cultivating that sense of wonder.
That sense of wonder and curiosity.
The challenges.
Yeah.
The rewards
of being factful. The
resources
that can support us on that journey.
That support us and
the power of small actions.
To
create positive change.
I think we've equipped our listener.
We have.
With a pretty comprehensive toolkit.
We've given them the toolkit.
For navigating the world, right?
I think so.
In a more factful and compassionate way.
I think so too.
I think one of the most beautiful threads running through Rosling's work is just that unwavering belief in humanities.
Potential for good.
Potential for good.
Yeah. I think it shines through in every chapter.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, he was so passionate about showing us that the world is, in a lot of ways, better.
A lot better.
Than we think it is.
Than we think it is.
And we have the power to make it.
And we have the power to make it.
Even better, right.
Even better. It's a powerful message.
Powerful message of hope.
Of hope and empowerment.
And empowerment.
Yeah, especially when times feel so discouraging.
Right. It's more relevant than ever. So as we wrap up here, what's one final thought that you'd like to leave our listener with? Something we haven't explicitly discussed, but that kind of, builds on everything we've talked about.
One thing that's really interesting to me is that Rosling shows us that our instincts can distort our understanding of the world. But those same instincts, if we can understand them, if we can harness them effectively, can be these powerful forces for good.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Like flipping the script.
Flipping the script on these instincts.
On these instincts. Like take the urgency instinct, for example. It can make us overreact to short-term threats. But that same instinct, if channeled towards solving climate change or global poverty, could fuel incredible action.
Right. So recognizing the power of these instincts and then redirecting them.
Redirecting them
towards
the challenges.
The challenges that actually deserve our attention.
Exactly. It's like asking, how do we transform that fight or flight response into a fight for the future response?
Oh, I like that. That's great.
I love that.
So instead of being controlled by our instincts, we're learning to control them.
Right.
To use them as fuel. To create that world. That we want to see.
I
think that's really empowering.
Yeah.
It suggests that we're not just like battling against human nature.
Right.
But we're actually tapping into it and using it for good.
I think that's a beautiful...
It is. That's a great place to end it, I think. So to our listener out there, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
On this deep dive. We hope you've learned something new.
We hope so.
That you're inspired to be more factful in your own life and that you'll share this message with others.
Spread the word.
And remember, the world is full of wonder.
It is.
It's a lot better than you think.
It is.
And we all have the power.
We all have the power.
To make it even better.
Let's do it.
So let's go out there and do it.
Let's do it.